Hello and welcome to Them Awards That I Do 2025 edition here at Levels Plus Whenever. Before we start though, I have one pickup, which is the Marvel vs. Capcom Ultimate Complete Works. Lovely book if you are into the Marvel vs. Capcom series or just appreciate Capcom's art. This is a great pickup and is definitive. It has Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite and the Arcade Classics bonus art all included in there. Unlike the last release, which stopped at Ultimate. Okay, that's the new thing. So let's get into the awards. And to start off, on a similar note to what I had picked up, we're going to start with my favorite video game book of the year. And perhaps not too surprising to learn that the Grease Neva Collector's Edition art book is my number one choice. It is a lovely book that, while not quite as snazzy as the Grease Collector's Edition that came out with the signature edition of that game several years ago, I definitely think that it is still an incredibly well done book. And having the Neva concept art and all that is really, really nice on top of the Grease material. The runners-up include that Marvel vs. Capcom book I just put up, as well as the Metroid Prime 1-3 visual retrospective. Toys, well, they're all amiibo this year. The Samus with Viola amiibo, I think, is one of their absolute highlights of the line. It just looks really sick. It's a really well done amiibo. It's unfortunate that mode that's kind of would have been nice to just have is locked behind this thing. It's funny that it seems that after we had this long stretch of amiibo that just did cosmetic things, that we're starting to now get amiibo that do more important things again, particularly with Beyond. I'm not really sure how I feel about that. Runners up are the Donkey Kong and Pauline amiibo and the Kimberly from Street Fighter 6 amiibo. Both of those are also top notch. All right, before we switch into music, I want to quickly touch on my favorite streamers and content creators and just say that the winner for that is Keita Nash and Cat for the Win's collaborations in 2025. Just absolutely a hoot every single time they get together. I love it. They just have a really great chemistry with each other. Super fun. Roundabout in particular was my favorite stream of the year. It was super, super funny. I also want to point out a couple other really awesome highlights that happened in 2025 in that space. The Pit Crew Trans Am was a wonderful fundraising event that went for about 24 hours straight with a plethora of amazing and varied content across the board. There was a worms competition. I learned more about Neopets than I ever thought I would. There was a bizarre arcade pit, which is always a delight to see, among so much else. That was such a worthy cause, and I was just a joy that I actually had the day to sit and enjoy so much of it, till I had to go to sleep because eventually I got tired. I also want to give props, as always, to Smite for Arcade Pit and the damage randomizing videos that he does. He's just a delight all the time. And Arcade Pit celebrated its 10th anniversary, and he celebrated by having 10 arcade pits in a single day, back to back. That was a lot of fun. And I also won an arcade pit raffle this year. So eventually I'm going to get a frame for what I got, which is the art from the Pit Crew Trans Am. And that'll be hanging around back here somewhere. Mad props. And I also would like to give a shout out to Ty Tuesday as well. Ty has really been delivering on so many fronts. Doing heart monitor things with Bad Simpsons games and having the bad game wheel, which was epic marathon that went for several days of Ty just trying to get through so many awful games. He's just got a really great knack for streaming and a wonderful personality. Also, Content Farm Fridays is so much fun. That's right, we're gonna cheat that he does with Minimat is a lot of fun. There's other stuff that he's done this past year that I think is great. So I want to give Smite and Ty Tuesday the runners up on that because I feel like they have just consistently done amazing things. And honestly, those are the 4 streamers that I subscribe to on Twitch because they just constantly do things that I like. So you can see the rest of my nominations for this year's streaming content creating in the description. So please check that out and check out everyone that I nominate down there. They're all fantastic. All right, moving on to music. And it has been a wonderful year for me expanding my tastes in music. 2023, 24, when I really started thinking I want to listen to some new stuff to get inspired for writing Isolate books, has just reawakened that passion for listening to music. And these are my top 10 albums of 2025. They're all exceptional in so many ways. But the top 5 is Deep Sea Diver, Billboard Heart, followed by Chloe Slater, Love Me Please EP, followed by a tie for Pink Shifts, Earthkeeper, and Beach Bunny's Tunnel Vision. I really couldn't choose between those two. They're just both phenomenal best of albums from both of those bands. And number 1 is Of Monsters and Men, All Is Love and Pain in the Mouse Parade. I've been so desperate to hear Of Monsters and Men roar back after Fever Dream just really didn't land for me. And this is a really fantastic return to form for them, in my opinion. I really love that album to death. It's so good, and it's definitely helped me sort through a lot of things. Runners up goes to Coast Arcade self-titled LP, Deer Fang's Bloom, which they did re-release with the other half of this EP set, but this was specifically the 2025 release, so I'm including that. King Princess's Girl Violence, Wet Legs Moisturizer, and The Best Straight Line Was a Lie, which honestly I need to listen to these last 3 albums a little bit more than I have, but I still feel that this is pretty approximate in terms of placement. Alright, let's wrap up music real quick because I've written about all those, so there's posts that you can go check out to see why I picked things that I did and even listen to the selections, because doing that on YouTube is asking for my video to get hit with copyright claims. So, best song goes to Fig Tree by Chloe Slater, followed by Emergency by Deep Sea Diver, and Fruit Bat by Of Monsters and Men. My favorite video game remix of 2025 goes to Gangplank Galleon from Donkey Kong Country. It's really the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate version, though, that Gametal did. Just brilliant. Followed by Slowly Crushed, a short hike remix called Ash, and Jen's Guilty Gear Strive remix of Extras. My favorite video game soundtrack was Clair Obscur Expedition 33, followed by Mario Kart World and Absolem. My favorite video game song of 2025 was The Bird's Lament in Silent Hill F, composed by Kakeru Takeda, followed by Kong Bonanza and Donkey Kong Bonanza with Ginny Kid, Naoto Kubo, Daisuke Matsuoka, Raika Nakai, Yuri Goto, and Tsukasa Usoi. And Ancient Sanctuary Gestral Summer Party from Clair Obscur by Lorian Testard. What a great year for music, honestly. Not just for video games, but just in general. I have really enjoyed getting more into music again after like several years of a long break of just kind of sticking with what I know. Isolate has really helped open me up, as I said, and I am so grateful, and I'm just also enjoying video game music even more than I think I have in a long time. So it's just been a wonderful time for me to use my ears. Moving along to a couple new awards that I have created for 2025 specifically. The best new character in a video game for 2025 and the best artistry in a video game for 2025. I just felt like these are things that I really care about. I love characters in video games, and I love art in video games. So I wanted to actually start awarding games that I feel deliver so well on those fronts. So for my favorite new character in 2025, it's Lune from Clair Obscur Expedition 33. I really enjoyed the dynamic of Clair Obscur's Expedition 33. And Lune is, to me, such a standout. She reminds me a lot of myself in some ways. Just really hyper-focused on trying to do your best. And just really being a little harsh when things don't go right. I feel like Lune is like where I was in my early 30s, which is appropriate given her age. And I can see how much I've grown from now to back then, and where I have really worked on that perfectionism trait and all that. So watching Lune go through the many events that happen in that game and just really relating to her. I also love the fact that she floats. I think that she's one of the coolest levitators I've ever seen in a video game, and her design is just really, really great. Voice acted beautifully. Everything about Lune is just top-notch character design for me. So I'm really happy that she exists. And that's probably one of the reasons why I don't like the ending for Clair Obscur that much. Runners up goes to Atsu and Ghost of Yote and Mael from Clair Obscur. My favorite artistry in a video game in 2025 is Dear Me I Was. Arc System Works, beautiful visual novel that is barely interactive, but given how much effort they put into the quality of the art and the animation, it blows me away how beautiful that game is to look at. And it is truly one of my favorite video games in terms of just sheer artistry. I've always liked Hotel Dusk and Another Code's art. And same art team. Essentially, this is an unofficial game by the same devs at Arc System Works, and it is just beautiful. Highly recommend picking it up just to appreciate the gorgeous art on display. Clair Obscur and Absolem are the runners-up for that category. All right, so let's move into a couple interesting categories, which are kind of the offshoots of the main core, which is video game remaster remake without drastic reinvention, DLC free update, and retro compilation. One of these may be new, I can't remember. But I feel like, again, these are all important distinctions to make in a industry that really does love remixing old ideas. Some of them are really good, and I want to make sure that remasters and remakes do get noted for being well done. Compilations that emulate well, have a nice selection of games and features, get spotlighted. And DLC or free updates that are truly worthwhile, that I got a lot out of. So my choice for the best 2025 video game remaster remake without drastic reinvention is Final Fantasy Tactics: The Evolved Chronicles. I am as shocked as you are. This might be the first time I've ever given an award to Final Fantasy. It's really well done. And the reason why it's here at the top is that Square Enix learned from Tactics Ogre Reborn and included options. So if you want to play the reimagined or the remaster of the game with visuals that are improved, it's better than Tactics Ogre, but they're still a little bit more smudgy, but they look like there was more care put into it. You can, or you can play the original game with the original graphics with an updated script, maybe not all of the QOL features, but you have a choice. You don't have to play the remaster if you don't want to. The original was remembered and embraced and appreciated just on the same level as the remaster was. Square Enix has been pretty bad at that, to be completely frank. Tactics Ogre Reborn, and a great example that they just made basically a new game, but they didn't let you turn off that fuzz. Saga Frontier 2 also had a really bad filter, and it looked like AI was involved. Not a good look. So when Final Fantasy Tactics: The Evolved Chronicles came out and I actually played through the first map, I was impressed at how nice it all actually looks once you actually have it on the screen and you're not looking at YouTube compression or all that. And you can play the original game more or less if you want to. That's, I think, the gold standard that I would love to start seeing in remaster efforts like this, is keep the original game as an option on top of a remastered version. Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition and Super Mario Galaxy 1+2 are the runners-up for this one. Best Retro Compilation in 2025. Boy, there was two that I own that came out this year, but they would win any year, basically, if they were the only ones in competition. Capcom Fighting Collection 2 went above and beyond in including 8 really high demand Capcom fighting games. Capcom vs. SNK 1 and 2, Power Stone 1 and 2, Project Justice. All of those games have been just coveted for so long. We also get Capcom Fighting Evolution, but we also get Plasma Sword, which I think is great, and the definitive Street Fighter Alpha 3 upper after an update. That is like the best Street Fighter Alpha 3 that you could have on modern consoles. So it is an incredible collection. They threw in brand new soundtracks for Project Justice, Power Stone 2, and Capcom vs. SNK 2. What? Why? Just incredible amounts of art in the gallery, including a whole bunch of new material to celebrate this release. Special remixes from Cap Jams, features upon features upon features, playing as extra characters that you normally couldn't. It's extraordinary. An extraordinary compilation for fighting game fans. You can't ask for a better compilation if you love Capcom fighting games. And I think it even tops Marvel vs. Capcom arcade classics and just the awesomeness that they put into it. It's an incredible collection. It makes me feel bad for Gradius Origins, which is among M2's finest work in the compilation arena. It's doing similar things for shoot 'em up fans. It collected versions of Gradius, especially Gradius 3, that were thought lost to time, like beta versions released at conferences to show off the game, levels of completionist. It's got tons of features, tons of stuff to play around with. There's even hidden games. You can get the Versus System version of Gradius, for example. It is almost as top tier as Capcom Fighting Collection 2 in terms of scope and depth and quality. You also get a brand new game in Salamander 3, which is awesome, and the type of thing that I love M2 doing these days with their releases. They did the same thing with the Castlevania Dominus collection, with a brand new haunted castle that's so much better than the arcade original. And they included the arcade original just for completion purposes. So both of those, you can't really go wrong. I'm giving it to Capcom Fighting Collection 2 because I definitely have nostalgia, but Capcom went hard, so hard on that collection, and it's obscene how much is going on with it. Which takes me to the DLC free update category, which Capcom Fighting Collection 2 wins with the Street Fighter Alpha 3 Upper update, which adds characters that weren't even in the arcade version of Alpha 3 to the arcade version of Alpha 3 Upper. Eagle, Maki, Yun, Ingrid, all characters added to the PSP version of the game, and 3 of them were in the Game Boy Advance version. They were never in an arcade conversion of Street Fighter Alpha 3. They are now, and that is ridiculous levels of commitment. They also added the Dreamcast normal I forget what Sayo, and starts with the M. I can't quite remember what it is, like Mazai or something. They added that into it as an extra thing, which is like, they didn't need to do that, but they did. But it's really the characters, and those 4 characters have everything that they had in the PSP version in the arcade. Endings, intros, it's wild. This shouldn't happen. Capcom went so above and beyond expectations with that update that I'm just sitting here floored still that happened. So tremendous free update to an already amazing game. Emerald Rush for Donkey Kong Bonanza and Little Kitty Big City's Picture Perfect update are the runners-up for that category. All right, let's start getting into difficulty awards. What was the hardest game I played? Knuckleheads. Wow, that game is brutal. Double Dragon Advance is the runner-up. Easiest game, easiest cakewalk was Dear Me I Was. There's barely any gameplay in it, so it was a pretty breezy game to go through and unpacking, which the point isn't really difficulty. The point is just placing things in the room where you think it's appropriate. Worst game of 2025 that I played. This is primarily games that I played in 2025 that didn't come out this year. None of the games I played this year were the worst game of 2025 that I experienced. Rumba Lumber for the Ira2 Minis 3rd expansion was my least favorite game because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. That game is so convoluted and complex for a 1981, 82, maybe 83 game that it makes no sense. And it's not very fun to play either. Metal Soldier Isaac 2 and Knuckleheads ended up being the other games in this category that I just didn't enjoy all that much. The biggest disappointment of 2025 is a game I didn't even play. Fatal Fury City of the Wolves. I wrote about this. It was the biggest thing I wrote this year. My immense disappointment for MISC getting their mitts into SNK just turned into the pinnacle of my disappointment. I was not happy when SNK was bought by MISC originally, but it just kind of seemed like they were letting them do their own thing. Well, 2025, the illusion broke, and it broke in a big way with just some of the worst decision making I have yet to experience in marketing a video game. Adding in real-life people into Fatal Fury was a bad idea. Having both of them so closely tied to the Saudi royalty was even worse. One of them being an alleged rapist is icing on the cake. What a horrible decision to have Ronaldo be a playable character. It's apparent that was from the top at MISC, inflicting that into City of the Wolves. And then a DJ, whose name I forget, being put into the game as well, who has extreme ties to the Saudi royal family. It was embarrassing. It was appalling to watch SNK, one of my favorite companies in terms of the fighting game sphere, get lost. That I have to abandon anything they do from now on because of this really heinous decision to do that. I am ignoring anything that SNK does. And it makes me sad because I was really excited about Fatal Fury City of the Wolves. I was pumped for it. I was ready to order it. I was ready. I already placed my money down. I was excited. And then they just had to go and do what they did. And I was so disappointed, but I have to stand by the convictions that I have. I cannot support SNK if they're going to be this blatant about who owns them. Because they have a horrific human rights record. So my hope for 2026 is that MISC sells SNK to somebody else. And then they re-release the game without those characters and put characters in that make sense. Duck King, he's a DJ that already exists in Fatal Fury lore. Why wasn't he in the game? It's just like, why do we have these real-world people? Why did the Saudis have to buy SNK? Okay. Shadow the Ninja Reborn and Stories of Soul the Gundog are the runners-up. And I'll get into a little bit more detail with these last few awards. Shadow the Ninja Reborn was disappointing because Tango Project has not missed. Wild Guns Reloaded. Brilliant. Wonderful reinvention. Adds so much to the core of the original Super Nintendo game. Ninja Saviors or Ninja Warriors once again. Brilliant. Again, takes the Super Nintendo game and just gives it so much more expansion, adds new characters, is one of the best beat-em-ups ever made. One of my absolute favorite games of all time. Pocky and Rocky Reshrined. Wonderful return to a run-and-gun icon that kind of starts like you think it's a remake, but it's actually a new game in the series that adds in new characters, adds in a lot of new complexities, is visually stunning, great soundtrack. Just their track record up to Shadow the Ninja Reborn was immaculate. Shadow the Ninja Reborn has a great soundtrack, but I think that the visual design that they chose is too colorful, too bright for that game. The art design was not my favorite out of their games so far, but the big kicker was that it doesn't control well. They have buttons that they just choose to not use and create complicated means of doing things with a limited button set that doesn't make any sense to me. it's also annoying trying to do the platform crossing. Like, it's got too many commands to do something that should be so simple. So Shadow of the Ninja Reborn, a miss. And I'm hoping that they can rebound with whatever is their next project, which is likely Final Mission SCAT. But we'll see. I hope that whatever's next is better, because I was not super thrilled about it. Stories of Soul is a visual novel adventure game inspired by the PC-88 era of games. And it just was really well done until I started noticing things. I noticed that there was a scene where my character, who was the woman option, embraced her girlfriend and her face looked weird. It didn't look like it was drawn. It looked like it was AI'd. And then I really started noticing things like in the text and just a couple things in the menus. And I was just like, I think this game had a lot of AI help. And that kind of turned me off from it. So I decided that I was done. I got not quite through, I think I got through the first full day of the game before I stopped. And that was disappointing, because I thought that game had some real interesting promise and people had some pretty nice things to say. But by the time I actually got around to playing it, I was thinking about AI a lot. So I was looking out for it, I guess, and it just, maybe it isn't, but it looks like it, and it bugged me. So biggest surprise goes to Absolem. Wow. Guard Crush Games just knows how to make a beat 'em up. They really do. They went from Streets of Rage 4 into Absolem, and it's like they didn't lose a step. In fact, I would say Absolem even feels better. It's also one of the few games that I think incorporates roguelite elements beautifully and successfully, that it doesn't trigger my absolute disdain of roguelites. One of few. Hades is another one. But Absolem does it on a way that it's even less intrusive. Because, like, if you die, you go back, you can build up your stats and all that, but it's like, it's a beat 'em up. So it doesn't feel like there's as much of a time commitment because the loop's shorter. Like, you could get through Absolem in maybe like an hour once you really know what you're doing. So if you die, it's like you've lost a half hour of progress or 15 minutes of progress. It's not like I went through all of Hades and it's over an hour and I'm just at a boss that's really hard and my skill set that I built up just isn't clicking, and then I have to do it all over again. And I like Hades, but that's one of the reasons I haven't finished it. It's just not a gameplay loop that I usually enjoy, but with Absolem, I do. And I think it's because the beat 'em up genre just works really well with it. More so than just an action game. So I fell in love with Absolem. I love the art design, the music, as I hinted with the runner-up award for it. It is great. It is easily one of the best games of 2025 and just blew me away. I was not ready for it. Then I just started seeing it and watching it and hearing all these people talk about it. And I'm like, oh my God, they did it. They actually made an original IP that is arguably better than Streets of Rage 4. And it's the truth. Clair Obscur, Expedition 33 and Cat Quest 3 are the runners-up. Clair Obscur is a wonderful game. It is an absolutely wonderful game. I love so much about it. I love how it looks. I love how it sounds. It won Music of the Year. I love the characters. I love the world. I love the gameplay. I love the combat. I love the way that the game just works in terms of interconnecting and so much to explore and go do, and ramps up so that way it just feels like there's so much to do all the time. Really wonderful game. Incredible game. Hate the ending. Hate both the endings. Makes me feel like all of the world building that they did is pointless. So, it's not in my 3 main games for Game of the Year, but I do feel that it was a big surprise because it did have some hype in advance, but once it came out, it's like everybody was talking about it. I am sad that the game has become a bit of a mantle for Westerners can fix game genres that were originated in Japan. Fuck that bigoted, xenophobic bullshit. It's a game that was inspired by those very games you are saying it replaces. It is a different development team's take on those things. It is not replacing them, it is celebrating them. Fuck off. Cat Quest 3 is lovely. It is a great game. I was greatly surprised by it and how much I got engaged with it. It is just a delightful little pirate game that has a very unique way of exploring the world and engaging with ship battles and on land battles and dungeons, and it's just wonderful. It's a wonderful little indie game that builds off of the prior 2 Cat Quest games that I'm excited to finally give a shot to, because Cat Quest 3 was very good and it ended up in my top 110 list. I love it. So highly recommend if you haven't picked that one up. The best non-2025 game awards. There's one for what I've played in the past and one for new things that I haven't experienced before. So let's do I played before first. And on a streak for 2 years running is Resident Evil 4 Remake. God. I love RE4 Remake. And I finally beat the core game for my LP series, so I had to include it again. Just, oh man, that's run 12. I'll probably play it again next year because I still need to finish the Ada stuff. Those videos didn't do very well, and they're a bit of work to put together. So there's just a part of me that's like, I don't really want to just waste the time for something that no one's really interested in on my channel. LPs have definitely been something that I've experimented with, but I think people generally are more interested in what I have to say versus me playing a game. And that's fine. If I get the whimsy to do an LP, I'll do it, but that's not really the core of what I do on this channel. But I did at least want to get the main game done. So I did that over the summer, and it's still brilliant. I still love it. I still think it's fantastic. I still think it's one of the best video games ever made. I love that game. Runners up goes to XCOM 2 and Capcom vs. SNK 2. XCOM 2 is kind of cheating because I actually like War of the Chosen more, but I wanted to revisit the original this year and then revisit War of the Chosen in 2025 or 2026 sometime. And XCOM 2 is still a really good game. I think War of the Chosen is even better, but I do think in terms of just placement on my list, it's certainly deserving, and it's not as distinct as Enemy Within is to Enemy Unknown for its predecessor. There's definitely more of the core DNA of XCOM 2 and more of the Chosen. They just flesh it out more. So I feel like it's a safe place to put it as the first runner-up. Capcom vs. SNK 2 is one of my favorite fighting games of all time, and I get to play it on my Switch too now, which is just phenomenal. It is my second favorite Capcom fighter of all time, and I think third behind Smash and Street Fighter 6 of all time. So I adore this game, and to be able to play it on something modern is just earth-shattering for me because it is such a phenomenal game. What have I not played before that I played in 2025 that I just loved? And we're going to start with Dead Space Remake, which came out in 2023 as well. I got it for cheap, and the hype was real. It is such a drastic improvement on the original game that it even exceeded my love for Dead Space 2 and is in my top 20 games of all time. It is almost faultless as a remake. It is definitive. It's the way to play the original Dead Space. And I love how they've expanded upon it and added some new areas, replaced that annoying turret minigame with something that's far more Dead Spacey and like just interesting on a mechanical level. The characters being fleshed out. Isaac has a personality that's based on Dead Space 2 and 3, setting those games up, even though we'll never see a remake. And guess who owns EA now? The Saudis. So I will not be playing anything unless they sell Dead Space off to another company that I actually can support. Runners up goes to Metaphor, ReFantazio, and SteamWorld Heist 2. Metaphor is amazing. It just stunned the hell out of me because I had given up on that dev team. Persona 5 took the issues of Persona 4 and just didn't learn a goddamn thing. And then Metaphor comes out and it's like there's no gender issues. There's no LGBTQ issues. The writing is phenomenal. The characters are so well voice acted and written. It is a gorgeous looking game with incredible menu design. The gameplay is fun and engaging and really, really delightful. And some of my absolute all-time favorite characters. Yufa is so rad, and I really want them to make a statue of her at some point. I love her so much. Gallica, another great supporting character that I really, really love. It's been a little while, so I'm trying to remember names. Juna, another fantastic character. Hulkenberg, fantastic character. All of them, honestly. I'm blanking on names because it's been a little while, but they're all great. They're all wonderful. They're all delightful. I love them all. Dead Space 2023 just did not surpass Dead Space 2, in my view. It probably would be the winner of this award for this year. Metaphor's so good. SteamWorld Heist 2 is a wonderful follow-up to the original that I think improves upon it by making the overworld part an actual game instead of a map. The same wonderful gameplay of Heist is here in spades. I think the cast in Heist 1 is a little better, but I do think that everything else about Heist 2 is an improvement and a tribute to the now owned by Atari Image and Form that lost their name and became Thunderbolt something. I hope Atari doesn't squander the amazing IP that they've acquired by purchasing Thunderbolt. All right, well, we're going to switch from my face to a different screen for Game of the Year because we're there. We are finally there. To end this year's awards that I do, let's talk about the 2025 Game of the Year. And I narrowed down the 18 to 20, I can't remember the exact number at this point, games that I had bought from 2025, down to 10. These are games that I have played enough that I feel that I have a very strong opinion about where they fall on a list like this. Game of the Year is Donkey Kong Bonanza. Runner-up is Silent Hill F and Absolem, followed closely by Claire Obscure Expedition 33, Ghost of Yotei, and then the runners-up, so to speak, would be Dear Me, I Was, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, Dragon Quest 1 HD 2D Remake, Mario Kart World, and Night Striker Gear. I'm going to just briefly touch on the 7 that aren't the big winners, starting from the bottom up, and then I'll talk about Donkey Kong Bonanza, Silent Hill F, and Absolem, which I think are the 3 best games of 2025. So, Night Striker Gear is a great evolution of Taito's behind-the-back shoot-'em-ups. that they had with Night Striker, Aquajack, Galactic Storm. This is just M2's take on the same concept, but even better executed. It's also got a great soundtrack, and it looks really nice for what it is. It's a very solid, delightful arcade experience. Mario Kart World, the launch game for the Switch 2. I don't think it's as good as Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at launch. Mainly because Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at this point is like 96 tracks. And Mario Kart World's got like 30? I don't quite remember. I think there's a lot of room for this game to grow, but I do like how it looks. The soundtrack is incredible, as I mentioned earlier, and it's got some really good course designs and visual elements that I think really make this game pop. It just needs more stuff to do. Dragon Quest 1 HD 2D Remake, I think, is a really solid reimagining of the original Dragon Quest. My biggest beef with it, honestly, is the fact you're still stuck with just one hero. It really feels like there could have been room to grow that into a full-on party. But beyond that, I thought it looked great, played great, sounded really good. Rest in peace, Sugiyama. I always have to say that when I talk about music in Dragon Quest. I'm looking forward to trying out 2 and 3 in the near future. Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. I just recorded a video talking about that. That went up last week by the time you hear this. So I'll keep my thoughts brief. I think that when it is Metroid Prime, as in first-person shooting, scanning, exploring, it's wonderful. I think that a lot of the new elements related to the hub world and between all of the biomes was a bit of a mistake. I also think that the main antagonist is a little lacking. Dear Me, I Was. This almost was in the top 5. It almost got into the top 5. It just doesn't have a lot of gameplay to it. You either are eating food or helping doodle something or pulling something out from under a bench. It's really rudimentary gameplay-wise. However, the artistry on display is top caliber stuff for video games. Some of the most beautiful artwork, accompanied by an incredible musical score and a really heartfelt, emotional story. Really did a lot for me in 2025. So I think that Dear Me, I Was is a lot better than I think a lot of people gave it credit for. Ghost of Yotei. I have to add a little asterisk here because I changed the control scheme when the DLC came out, and that fixed just about every problem I had with the controls. So I moved this into the top 5 because I think that when I was playing it with the revised controls, with L1 and L2 acting as the attack buttons and interact is now on a different button, and I turned off the QTE commands as a hold, which somehow also affected the weapon wheel. I don't know why they did that. All of a sudden, all of my control issues went away. So, Ghost of Yotei is a delightful game. I really was happy with it. Atsu's a great character. I really enjoyed her story. It looks incredible, has a really nice soundtrack, and now that I fixed the control scheme to be something that doesn't irritate the hell out of me, it's a real fun game to play. Last but not least in the runners-up category is Claire Obscure Expedition 33, which is a bit of a surprise to me, as much as it probably is for you at this point, since it just is walking away with a bunch of game awards from other publications. I think it's an extraordinarily well-crafted game that does so many things right. I really do not like how it ends. I think that the emphasis change from the characters that you were interacting with into something that is completely separate, and I'll just go very, very loose in terms of keeping spoilers at a minimum, did not work for me. it really did not land the way that I would have liked. I did not enjoy seeing all of these characters I built relationships with basically become background. And I thought that kind of sucked. So the ending is what lowered Clair Obscur out of the top 3, honestly. Wonderful game on every other level. I do think that it is deserving of Game of the Year for a lot of reasons. But for me personally, the ending just kind of sunk it for me. All right, top 3 video games for 2025. And I gotta tell you that I am surprised by where these top 3 ultimately landed. Absolum came out of nowhere, was announced this year, has no license attached to it, which .emu has typically done with their games, is an original IP from the devs behind Streets of Rage 4, teaming up with a new animation studio, Super Monks, to create a roguelite beat-em-up that is the perfect hybrid of those genres. Absolum plays beautifully. It is gorgeous to watch. The soundtrack is incredible. All of the characters are really cool to play as. The roguelite elements don't hurt the game. In fact, it probably enhances it and makes it even more replayable than normal. Honestly, the biggest issue with Absolum is some of the background elements aren't animated as much as I would expect them to be. And the final progression area is really hard. That doesn't really matter when you can use accessibility options to turn the damage down to nothing, honestly. So I just have been enjoying the sheer gameplay mechanic feel, and loving it. Like, when I see people play this game, I want to play it. That is really the greatest testament to a game's gameplay and controls, is seeing other people doing cool stuff and going, oh, I bet I could do that too. I want to turn that back on and play it. Absolum is a brilliant game and one of the best beat-em-ups ever made as far as I'm concerned. Silent Hill F. I'm looking forward to talking about Silent Hill F in 2026. As of the time of this recording, I have not done all the endings, but I'm going to do all the endings probably over the winter break. Silent Hill F came as a genuine shock at how brilliantly on point its gender dynamic discussion about 1960s rural Japan and how women were essentially property. I'm still stunned. I'm like absolutely floored with how thorough the metaphor runs through the entire game. That is the psychological trauma Hanako has gone through and has seen her mother and her older sister experience, and to some degree even her friends. And she's struggling to be a woman in that environment, and to take that very realistic and disturbing depiction of how women were viewed and just make that a Silent Hill game just blew me away. It also helps that it is gorgeous. The soundtrack is so good. It controls really well, and Hanako being a track star kind of justifies her abilities to dodge and attack really well. And it goes dark and has the best narrative out of any game I played this year in terms of just impact and awe about how effective everything is at telling this story about this young woman who is entering a period of her life where she sacrifices her self-identity to become what her husband wants her to be. Absolutely incredible game. I'm looking forward to getting back into it. It was just really, really intense, and I needed some time away after playing it. It was pretty close to taking number one. I'll be honest. I genuinely think this might be the best Silent Hill game. If I didn't love Heather so much, it probably would be number one on my list. But I do think in terms of execution and storytelling, this could be the best Silent Hill game. It really could be for some people. It's really close for me. The number one game of 2025 ended up being Donkey Kong Bonanza for me. And the reason for that is that it is joy personified as a video game. It is so much fun playing as Donkey Kong, running around, smashing anything in his path, digging deep into the ground to find all kinds of secrets, some of which are deliberate and some of which are randomized. Engaging in a just fantastical underground world where rules are different, backed with Pauline in a supporting role that finally elevates her from being just a damsel, a background character, someone who just shows up for sports games. She now has depth. She now has personality. She now has meaning that now enriches the entire breadth of her history with Bonanza's interpretation of her as a younger teenager coming to grips with life and what her passion is. Again, I'm going to minimize spoilers, but there are some wonderful callbacks in this game too that are really hype. The soundtrack is really good. It's not my favorite. It's got one of my favorite songs, and anything that Ginny Kidd, who is the voice of Pauline, sang is like top tier, wonderful. It's really more of just the level background tracks that are a little bit lesser than a lot of the other music, which is why it didn't necessarily win Soundtrack of the Year. Graphically, it is very strong and cartoony. I wouldn't say it's the best looking game that I played this year. That's probably Silent Hill F or Ghost of Yotei. But I think that it's beautiful, artistic representation of Donkey Kong is my favorite of the character. And everything around it just has this cartoony, almost Rare-like quality, which is amazing because Rare's not involved. This is Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction, but better. And I really loved that game, but it had a lot of issues with late game, post game. Donkey Kong Bonanza doesn't have that problem. It lets you just be this destructive, chaotic whirlwind of force, going through and doing whatever you need to do to get through the stage. Environment be damned, and it's so much fun. It is bliss to play it. It really is. And the Emerald Rush DLC is another example of roguelite elements done right. I don't think I realized that I could like this subset of video games until I played Absolem and Donkey Kong Bonanza this year. I kind of like Hades. I think that that's also a really good I can't say I kind of like Hades. I really like Hades. But I would probably like it more if the roguelite wasn't there. In this case, Absolem and Donkey Kong Bonanza did such a great job of establishing how that could work that it's like just fun. It works. It's not something that you really feel punished by. And that's I think the biggest thing for me about roguelites is that punishment factor. That's why I don't like Dark Souls, Demon Souls, Bloodborne. None of that interests me because there's that punishment element, and I could like live without Shovel Knight trying to shove that into its gameplay as well by making you lose half your money or all your money. Bonanza's a mini game and it's fun. Absolem just makes it such a central piece of how that game works and builds the replayability around it so well that it's effective. Emerald Rush is a lot of fun. I don't know if it was the price that it was given fun, but I paid it anyway. But I really enjoyed it and I played it a lot. So I just feel out of all of these games, and a very amazing year for video games, and I thought 2024 was stacked, 2025 ended up being an extraordinary year as well, and Donkey Kong Bonanza was the one that ultimately I had the most personal satisfaction with when I was done. And it kind of just goes down from there, but again, Silent Hill F and Absolem really impressed me, and depending on my whimsy, these three games could really flip-flop around a little bit. They're pretty close together on the list, on my top 110 list. As I said at the top, the video game industry has been, in some ways, disastrous. But I at least can say that there have been some very good video games this year, 5 of which entered my top 110 list, and there's just been an extraordinary amount of excellent music, both in video games and outside, that have really just done so much for me. And, of course, we have an incredible bunch of streamers and content creators doing some really impactful stuff in those spaces that I just also like giving a shout out to. So, thank you for joining me for this year's Them Awards that I do, 2025. As per usual, we'll have a couple other year-end videos to wrap things up. Dual Life Perspective, predictions / most wanted for 2026. So please look forward to those. On the blog, we'll also have ones that got away, which is when I talk about video games I started and didn't finish for whatever reason, and that's kind of beefy this year, so that is something to look forward to for the following week. But for now, since this is going up on Christmas, I hope you have a happy holiday, whichever one you celebrate in December. And if you don't celebrate any of them, I hope that the month has gone well for you. And I wish you a very, very happy New Year, because the next video will not be until after New Year's. All right, take care, friends.